Let's talk about the other team who look like a complete team in the way that they've managed to just build this season so far. And yes, they're not undefeated, 8-1 right now, but leading the NFC, the Detroit Lions, right? Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions against a Texans team who we were 3 weeks into the season ready to talk about a Super Bowl contender, and yet go and win that game 26-23.
Best win of the week.
I guess the question is there anyone in the NFC right now who can beat the Detroit Lions on a neutral field, say?
I will give the answer I gave last week here on the rundown when I was asked, could the Dallas Cowboys win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott? And I very professionally said, hell no. I'm not going to say hell no. I will come close to that, though. At this moment, no. Detroit, very, very good at offense. Even when Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions, they're still putting up 20-plus points.
Seriously, 5 interceptions.
That's what I'm saying. They lose that game.
You're down, live on talkSPORT on Sunday night.
19-0 at halftime in Houston, which is a pretty good fan base. Even if the Texans aren't playing that great, you lose that game. So the fact that they could win with Jared Goff on Sunday Night Football, throwing 5 interceptions, you have a good defense, you have good special teams, Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year candidate again, you have a great fan base. No, there's nobody in the NFC right now, if they were to play, that's better than the Detroit Lions. Minnesota with Sam Darnold, not good enough. Green Bay Packers with Jordan Love, not good enough. Chicago Bears, Matt Eberflus is pretty much gone. San Francisco 49ers, just like you, Will, I like the 49ers. Factually, they are 5-4, and they're still not even close to being a great team right now. Who is better in the NFC than the Detroit Lions? Maybe the Philadelphia Eagles, but I still have question marks about them. Detroit is in the Super Bowl unless they screw up. That's how good they are.
Is there a conversation with Detroit? Because they can win in every way. We saw it against the Titans. It was all about the special teams. Against the Packers, the defense were incredible. Again, this week against the Texans. If you can show up and hold the Texans to just 23 points while turning over the ball as many times as you did, 2 interceptions of their own, they were no slouches on the day. They just find a way to win consistently. And this is what we've been saying about the Chiefs, and we're talking about them being undefeated. My concern is that you see a similar situation to what you had in January, right? They turn up in San Francisco. They're up at the half. They're dominating on the ground. They are absolutely waxing that 49ers team. There is no way they're going to come back. They are headed to the Super Bowl. And somehow, 30 minutes of playtime later,
do you have
their head in their hands.
Did we fast forward? Do you have the 49ers in this?
No, this is last year's NFC Championship, right? Some of the teams you mentioned there, whether it's the Packers with their playoff experience, whether it is going to be the Eagles, who have taken this team, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts. They've been to a Super Bowl. They lost, but they know how to get there. The 49ers, you look at the fact that right now they are 5-4, but in the last 3 seasons, they went into their bye 4-4, 4-5, and 5-3. They always sit around that 500 mark at mid-season, and then they end up going to the NFC Championship game, going to the Super Bowl. This team could still go on that kind of run. It's going to take a lot for them to do it. We mentioned that they've got the Bills in 2 weeks' time. They've got to go on the road to the Packers as well. They've got to face so many great teams in their own division. But I just feel like the Lions are that team who, unlike the Chiefs, they're going to get to January, come up against a team with that bit of experience, that bit of that bit of coaching ability.
What did Detroit go through last year? I know what you're saying, but what did Detroit go through last year? Detroit had serious postseason experience last year. Detroit had to fight to win their first playoff game, and then should have won their second playoff game, and had an absolute disaster heartbreaker. You can't tell me that the Detroit Lions did not already learn from that. That's what we're seeing this year. We're seeing a team that is very, very gritty, that's very experienced within a short time frame. As we all know, the Detroit Lions haven't been Super Bowl winners for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But I think this is a team that's been through a lot in the last couple years, and we're seeing it this year. Yeah, they've got to prove it, and I won't be surprised or stunned at all if they don't win the Super Bowl, but there's no way around it. With the information that we have right now, they're the best team in the NFC. Nobody looks better. Philadelphia has... Nick Sirianni was getting fired a few weeks ago, so Philly has serious questions, and Detroit has that experience from last year. Now, just like Buffalo, they have to prove it when it matters.
It's huge for them to bounce back from this game and have Jared Goff turn up.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy we were talking about an MVP conversation 2 weeks ago, and yet that's exactly my problem, is that as much as Dan Campbell is a smarter head coach than people give him credit for. They see him as a rah-rah guy. They see him as a guy who's going to talk about biting off kneecaps and a guy who's going to talk about going into teams and mauling them, and it's all about like the passion and the power and everything else. He's a smart coach. And yet last year against San Francisco, they were so wedded and obsessed to this idea that we are going to be our team. We are going to do what we do. We're always going to go fourth down. We go from fourth down every single time, and not considering.
But we could doubt everybody. Who are you believing in the NFC? I mean, we could sit there and I could pick everybody apart who's good in the NFC, and you can't pick your San Francisco 49ers just because they're your 49ers. Who's better than the Lions in the NFC right now?
I don't think anyone is better than the Lions in the NFC right now. I will concede that point. That's the point I'm happy to concede. My problem is that what have you done for me lately in the playoffs? And you talked about them getting through, and you talked about them, the emotion of being at Ford Field for the first time, getting the first playoff home win. Eminem's there. You've got this huge crowd.
Barry Sanders, love me some Barry Sanders.
Exactly, all of that, great. They couldn't carry it over. Has that given them the grit to carry it over this year, or are we just going to see them stumble at the final hurdle again?
They're fun questions. This is where it's so much fun to come on here every week and debate this and question and praise and all these things. This is what we do when we cover the NFL at talkSPORT. I will say, though, think about this team that that was serious heartbreak for them last year. As you very well know, they should have won that playoff game. They should have been in the Super Bowl. Dan Campbell blew it. He said he acknowledged after the game he went too far. He kind of second-guessed it. So, I think he's learned from that. He's still gambling. He's still calling fourth down conversions more than anyone else in the NFL. But talk about this. This team that loses Aiden Hutchinson, who at the start of the season, early in the season, he is the Defensive Player of the Year. And he's looking like, okay, this is the next guy. This is the next TJ Watt. This is the next JJ Watt, the next Michael Strahan. Out for the season. Horrible injury, and they keep rolling. Jared Goff throws 5 interceptions. They win in Houston against a struggling, but a good Houston Texas team, Will. They have been through a lot of adversity already. So have the 49ers, so have the Eagles. But I think in terms of last year's playoff struggles and losing Aiden Hutchinson, I don't know if Detroit wants to go through more. If they do, they're not the best team in the NFC. You lose any more, you're not going to be able to cut it anymore. This is a Detroit team that I feel like has lost enough, been through enough pain, and they're still a really, really good football team that should be in the Super Bowl in February in New Orleans.
And Aaron Glenn has done an unreal job on that side of the ball.
He should be a head coach, by the way.
He will be next year.
Yeah.
He will be the new head coach of, I think, probably the New Orleans Saints, former Saints player, bring somebody into the building, turnover. How well has that worked in recent years, right? D'Amico Ryans comes into Houston, gives them that big lift.
Because he has a connection. You got to understand Houston. You have to understand New Orleans, those southern, small, mid-major markets. That makes a huge difference. I think you're totally right. Aaron Glenn goes to the Saints to be the head coach.
And look, what they have done without Aiden Hutchinson is phenomenal, but they don't have Aiden Hutchinson, which is another reason.
They make a move at the trade deadline, though, that should help them.
It's great the next 3 weeks when they're facing the Jags and the Colts and the Bears, and you've got porous offensive lines. You're easy teams to beat. When down the stretch they have to face off with Buffalo, when they have to face off with the Packers, when they have to face off with the Vikings, when they have to face off with the 49ers, who, if our thinking of their second season surge is right, should be a good team by then.
Pick it right now. Who's in the Super Bowl from the NFC?
It's the Lions, and I tell you why.
I was able to work you around to this in the end. I love it.
It's the Lions, and the reason it's the Lions is because of this man, Dan Campbell.
Oh my God, man, that is the definition of resiliency. You guys just kept banging away, right? We did whatever we had to do, and we just bought our time. Defense, that was outstanding, man. That was outstanding. And we knew it was just a matter of time. Offense, we get our points, man. Bates, that was freaking ginormous. All right. Look, and I'll just say this again. This is what great teams do. This is what great teams do. Even when you're having an off day, you find a way, man. You freaking find a way and you will it to happen. That's what you did today. That's what you did. I got 3 game balls. All right? I'm going to start here. All right? This guy is from here. All right? This guy's from here. No points in the second half. 2 takeaways. He is the defensive coordinator. I love this team! Defense, 4 tackles, 2 picks. CD! 2 picks!
I just want to say one thing, man. I swear to God, every game I'm coming out here and giving y'all my best, man. Like, I don't give a what's going on. Whether we down or we up, y'all got me. Y'all got me.
Last but not least, 2 field goals, one of them 58 yards, the other one a game winner, 52 yards, 2 extra points. Mr. Bates!
Hey, good win. Shout out my boys, Jack and Hogan, man. I love you guys, and man, I'm just so happy to be a part of that operation. Love you guys.
Break it down, man.
Hey, if that ain't a lesson, it ain't over till it's over. That's what it is, boys. Way to fight all day.
I love that it's Jared Goff breaking the team down at the end, despite the 5 picks. But, I mean, I've been sitting here trying to talk myself into the idea that it's not going to be the Lions. Don't you just want to run through a brick wall for that? Like, oh, Dan Campbell just makes me want to just throw this desk over.
But at the same time, and I was thinking this while I was watching this, and I was like, Dan Campbell also reminds Big Lebowski, the dude.
Yeah.
He also reminds me of Jeff Bridges. He reminds me of the dude. He's also giving the most fiery, I want to run through a wall speech, but he's crying. Like, he's almost always on the verge of crying because he's so emotional. He feels it so much. Dan Campbell gives me chills. Like, I watch that. That is why I love covering sports, writing about sports, being around sports for the last 20 plus years. That's what it's about. It's hard to see them not being in the Super Bowl, but I hope everyone doesn't pump them up too much and they let us down, because what an incredible story, the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl in New Orleans in the Superdome. That would be amazing.
I can't help but be a romantic, right? I can't help but get dewy-eyed, and I can't help but look at... We talked about the Bills already on this show, right? They went to 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost 4 straight Super Bowls. I got excited about the idea of the Vikings earlier in the season, and they're still in this mix. 7-2. They're only a game back on. They are only a game back on
Last I heard, the
Detroit.
Vikings have Sam Darnold as a quarterback. He's not going to the Super Bowl.
But Sam Darnold had a better game than Jared Goff did this weekend, and the defense again turned up and made a difference.
Sam Darnold's not going to the Super Bowl. Not going to the Super Bowl, Sam Darnold.
But I get excited about the romantics of it. I'm more convinced on Sam Darnold than you are, but I get excited about that romanticism, the idea of 2 teams who've been 4 times and lost. The Detroit Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. I'd get this way about the Browns if they hadn't ruined their entire organisation by bringing Deshaun Watson in. Like, I love the idea that if we're going to be out there, we're going to cover a great story like this. They do feel like, I know you've called them America's team before, much more so than the Cowboys. The Cowboys gave themselves that moniker, and nobody wants to call them that. They can't even figure out putting curtains in their stadium to stop the sun from coming in.
Breaking news, nobody in America calls the Cowboys America's team. That's only like an international thing because people don't really know. Just like if you're in the United States, you still think Manchester United is a good team. You think they're relevant. No. The Dallas Cowboys, nobody in America thinks the Dallas Cowboys are still America's team. But let's get back to an important team, the Detroit Lions, the Buffalo Bills, and I couldn't agree with you more. Having those 2 underdog, working class, blue collar, Detroit's not a small town, but you know, it's not LA, it's not Chicago, it's not Miami, it's not even New Orleans or Houston. To have Detroit and Buffalo in the Super Bowl, oh my God, that is the dream NFL fan Super Bowl, Will.
I still need just... There's still something. What I need them to do is in the playoffs go and blow a team out. Just go and just destroy somebody, really show all of their qualities against a very good opposition. It's fascinating to me that Dan Campbell gave the game ball there to 3 guys. We'd already talked about Aaron Glenn, how much they've done with that defense. Carlton Davis, a prime example of a guy who they brought in and has helped to change what they do on the defensive side of the ball. Because even without Aiden Hutchinson, they bring Zadarius Smith in, but that's kind of like you've gone from a top 2, top 3 pass rusher to a guy who's like league average. You need the body. He's a good player, but it's not a difference maker in the same way. And yet, Carlton Davis has come in. They draft players in the back end as well. They did everything they should do this offseason in a way the Cowboys didn't. In a way that, honestly, I know San Francisco had a good draft class, but didn't go out and make the free agent signings they need to. And we talk about this with the Chiefs all the time. They go out and they get DeAndre Hopkins. That was the exact receiver that they needed. A possession guy in breaking routes, everything Mahomes needs.
Wasn't it during the offseason, Brad Holmes, the GM of the Detroit Lions, basically came out talking to the media. Number 1, he's like, a lot of you guys are wrong, and a lot of people were wrong. And number 2, he basically said, hey, we're in it to win the Super Bowl this year. We don't care about anything else. We came close last year. We know we fell short. We either win the Super Bowl this year or it's a disappointment. I love to have a GM, a front office embrace that. That's what it should be for every organization. But most GMs and coaches are too afraid to say it, or when they say it, they don't really mean it because they're not good enough. They're good enough to do it, but they're going to have to get a little lucky and stay healthy. They're now winning games with Jake Bates, who was cut by the Texans, who was a college soccer kicker, who's an incredible story. But Jared Goff can't throw 5 picks, kind of to your original point, in a big game. They're going to have to clean it up a little to keep going.